AEW All in London 2024, August the 25th. Let's get into it. We'll start with the attendance. Last I checked on WrestleTix, it was 53,393 tickets distributed, with 1,424 available. Therefore, they didn't even sell out all the seats they made available. And of course, that was 30,000 less than last year. Now, I think once they have the turnstile numbers, it'll probably be in the 46, 48 range of how many people were in the building. There was a substantial amount of missing people in the seats. The camera made it easy to see because they kept panning over the crowd, and there's like patches of empty seats in the middle of the show. I don't know why their production team thought, hey, we're going to shoot up here where there's almost no people. Still, even if it was 45 to 50,000 people in the building, that's still amazing considering how cold this promotion is. So that's good. There's been a lot of news and notes, specifically a lot of Mercedes Moné, a lot of Swerve Strickland. A lot of these people are doing all that talking. We'll just talk about that when their matches come up rather than stall and wait to get there. So we'll start with the main event because the main event was simple. Swerve Strickland, Bryan Danielson, title versus career. The final countdown was the theme song for Bryan Danielson. The crowd was excited for this. This was one of the matches they were really looking forward to. For Swerve, he got Bun B and DJ Who Kid doing a remix of his original Big Pressure theme. I actually like the remix, the Bun B remix. It was actually pretty good. The story of the match was simple. Swerve is vicious, he's violent, and he's so locked in that there's not much Danielson can do that he's not prepared for. And to prove that he's all vicious and locked in, he did a Death Valley driver on the ring bell, which somehow made the front of Bryan Danielson's head bleed. He stomped him out Danielson style right in front of his kids, which was really crazy. So they was really showing off when it comes to Swerve just being vicious. Danielson was, opening up fresh cans of whoop ass. He did a tiger suplex from the top rope, which, the neck bumps. I know the high shoulder bumps that they do in AEW. I guess if you're going to do it, doing it at Wembley Stadium at their version of WrestleMania is the place. That being said, for it not to be the finish, come on, you just got to start asking important questions. Swerve Strickland then also countered the cattle mutilation to the vertebraker, which had one of the couple of stoppages that we had in this match where the medic team came in. They had to be shooed away because they were like, oh, Danielson's arm is broken, his neck's broken, something's broken. Nothing was broken. He finished the match. 3 times Danielson got hit with the house call kick. It might have actually been more than 4 by the time the match was over. The match is going back and forth. It's mostly Swerve, and he's barely sweating at this point. And then Danielson kind of powers up. He hits the Busaiku knee, and apparently Swerve Strickland had enough points where he transformed into Road Warrior Hawk, and he completely no-sold it. And instead, brushed it off. And I just like, okay. All right. So Swerve can no-sell people's finishers. Because wrestling is real. Anyway, Bryan Danielson ended up kicking out of Swerve's finisher, Big Pressure. At this point, Hangman Page jumps the barricade. This is the middle of the match at this point. He starts fighting with all the security guys. He's yelling at Prince Nana. This does not factor into the finish because Danielson was still down, but it didn't really distract Swerve. Not that much anyway. Swerve Strickland gets hit with a second Busaiku knee. That meant nothing. He kicked out at 2. He got hit with a third one. This one's on a counter after a pump kick combination, which is actually pretty cool. So eventually Danielson gets Swerve into the label lock. Swerve separates his fingers, and then Danielson bends and almost basically snaps the fingers of Swerve Strickland, puts him back in the labella lock, and Swerve Strickland submits. Bryan Danielson is the new AEW World Champion. This was the right decision. This was the right decision. I'm kind of disgusted about all the glazing that I see online. And there is a substantial amount of glazing for Bryan Danielson. It is absurd. But considering the guy is that damn good at what he's doing, and the emotional resonance of of his career being on the line, and his family being there, you know, it was a great performance for that crowd at this point in time, at this point in his career, because most people, because Danielson has been saying for a long time, it's time to hang it up. It's time for me to go away. A lot of people just said, okay, he about to have one final performance and then just go off with his kids. But I kind of figured he would win. I suggested that he win, and then he won. So this was good. The right person won. They told a solid story. Maybe the match was a little long. Some of the bumps maybe not really needed, like the tiger suplex off the top rope. I think sometimes they get obsessed with these really long matches when you could do just as much with the match being somewhat shorter. If you were going to have a run-in by Hangman Page, it should have landed into the finish, but it didn't, so I didn't know why that was happening. Also, the medical team coming in the ring, why have them in the ring? Because it's not going to factor into the finish. But Danielson winning was a great decision, smart decision, and it ought to be interesting going forward. We're going to talk more about Danielson being the world champion when we talk about the gauntlet later on. Match number 8, Coffin match. Jack Perry defeats Darby Allin. This match was wildly disappointing, and to be quite honest, I didn't really care. It was at this point in time that I decided to go and get dinner. I didn't miss much because I just happened to be, my mom just came back from a trip, so I went to eat at with her, and she made black-eyed peas and cornbread and rice, and peas and rice. My God, I'm stuffed. But she also made what was that? Cube steak. So I made chili for myself, but whatever. Anyway, back to this. Jack Perry pulled out the glass, sprayed glass in the ring. The crowd starts chanting "Fuck CM Punk." Earlier, it was just CM Punk chants, but then it turned into "Fuck CM Punk" chants. This is when the crowd actually started getting into it, because when the glass came out, everybody was like, "Real glass, oh my God." And he, posed, and the crowd went crazy, because the British crowds are the crowds that are more than likely going to be on the side of the Elite. These are the Meltzer faithfuls over there in good old England. But the rest of the match was a big old who cares. Jack Perry tied up Darby Allin's arms and legs, put him in a body bag, shoved him off the stage, a bunch of shit. Darby didn't really do much of anything to Jack Perry. So it was very disappointing. So Jack Perry ended up locking Darby Allin in the coffin while he had his arms and legs tied up, and he was stuffed in a body bag. So then the Young Bucks come out to set the casket on fire, and Sting made the save. I don't know. People think Sting is going to wrestle again. I don't think he's going to wrestle. I think he just came out to make this save. So Darby basically just gets embarrassed in Wembley. It was all about making Jack Perry look strong, which I guess Darby is the right opponent if you're going to do that. But you would have thought that these guys were mostly equals, I suppose. I didn't expect Jack Perry to win. He needed to win in order to be solidified. So Jack Perry won. I don't think much was gained from this win either, because I don't think. Well, I guess a certain section of the crowd loves Jack Perry, and or at least doesn't like CM Punk, or whatever the case may be. But I think they need to get over this whole glass situation and this whole thing with CM Punk. I've been saying for a while, CM Punk needs to stop alluding to it. He needs to stop talking about it. He needs to stop, doing these digs, because the WWE fans don't even understand this stuff and they don't care. The AEW fans, they eat it up because they pay attention to everything and they're overly critical. So this kind of stuff works for them. It's catnip for them. For a WWE fan, they don't really give a shit about this stuff because they don't really get it. So when CM Punk tries to throw his little shots back, they don't land. Everybody's like, what is he talking about? And who cares? Like nobody pays attention to this shit going on in AEW. But Jack Perry getting a substantial boost on the card after being suspended for so long can't be nothing but nepotism. Nothing but nepotism. He still hasn't shown a damn thing in terms of improvement since he came back. Now, match 7, Mercedes Moné defeats Britt Baker. And my word, this match was super mid. Extremely mid. The crowd decided they would rather do anything else than watch this match. I mean, I'm pretty sure people went to the bathroom. Some people just started shaving right there on the spot. They just broke out. Girls reapplied their makeup. It was, the bathroom lines were super long. Nobody gave a damn about this match. The entirety of Twitter, especially AEW Twitter, blamed Britt Baker. Oh, she's sandbagging. She wasn't any good anyway. It's time for her to go away. She sucks. I was like, man, just a couple of years ago, she was the belle of the ball. Now they're trying to run it out of the company. They're trying to run her out now. Sheesh. Look, the match wasn't very good. The people, it wasn't just the work. The work was mid, sure. Was Britt Baker sandbagging? I'm pretty sure it wasn't easy for Mercedes. But part of the reason why people were not that jazzed up for this match is because it's been built like this dream match. But Britt was gone for forever. And unless you're an AEW hardcore, what does she mean to you? There was no real heat for this feud outside of Britt Baker versus another outsider, which is the exact same story she was doing before she left. She was feuding with Saraya and Toni and all these girls who came from WWE. And the whole feud was, I'm an AEW original. You just showed up, blah, blah, blah. It's the same thing. Without adding anything new to Britt Baker, without trying anything different with Britt Baker, they just presented her as they have always presented her with 5 years straight. Same gimmick, same catchphrase, same everything. And people are kind of like, meh, we moved on to other things. We moved on to other people. And for Britt Baker to be as young as she is, she's only like 30. It's not like you've seen everything that she can do. And when you see that she had a serious injury where she was talking about having strokes or whatever, that, there would be some timidness going into the match. But I was shocked that so many people all of a sudden hate Britt Baker. I shouldn't be shocked, but I was. And I'm not disappointed because it's AEW fans. They turned on pretty much all of the originals eventually anyway. They turned on MJF. They turned on Max Caster. Now they turning on Britt Baker on a dime, by the way. So there's that. Mercedes winning, not that much of a surprise for me. We all saw this coming. Mercedes made some noise. She wrote an article, or somebody else wrote an article for The Independent about how she helped make wrestling, women's wrestling, elevated women's wrestling, or whatever it was. It was very ego-driven because there was a lot of I, not we, but I. And she was kind enough to put the word help. I helped, because if you read the article, it's all about how she had the best match and she stole the show and she did this and she's going to elevate everybody. And I see a little bit of myself in Willow Nightingale. You're like, what the hell are you talking about? This is all about you, you know. And then it doesn't even give really any real details. Like, how you helped elevate women's wrestling shouldn't be, well, I had a great match. Women had good matches before you showed up. That don't matter. You know, talk about some of the inner workings of how you convinced somebody like Vince McMahon, who, you know, don't really care that much about women's wrestling, that you could hold the fans' attention in a match, you know, and work a character and get over and sell merchandise. That's the kind of stuff, if you were going to write an article, talk about how I elevated women's wrestling, that's what I would want to read about. The internal conversations, how you convinced Triple H and Vince and Bruce Pritchard and all these guys who might have been stuck in their ways that it was time to create a tag team division in WWE, you know, for women. That it was, you know, it wouldn't destroy business if women were in the main event of the show, you know. But that's not what we got. We just got, oh, I put in the time and put in the work and I was put in the spot. And like, oh, so like everybody else, like literally all the other women on the roster, including the women who don't get any credit for trying to help women's wrestling going forward, that it was so egotistical that I was kind of like, man, I'm not surprised. But the thing that got everybody's spurs jingling and jangling was apparently she has a fan site, or she has a subscription magazine or something like that. She sends out these email blasts every week called Mone Mag. And, or was it an interview that she did? It was one or the other, where she talked about the difference between All In and WrestleMania, and how WrestleMania is hectic throughout the week. And All In, they hadn't even gone to the country yet, while in WrestleMania you'll be there the entire week and doing interviews, and between that and rehearsals you are burned out before the show and all this kind of stuff. Then she also talked about the difference between WWE and AEW in terms of, in WWE you wouldn't know what you were doing week to week, while in AEW, of course, she has her own personal writer, so of course she knows what she's doing because she has her own personal writer and some level of creative control, which I'm pretty sure is not the same for everybody. But what can you say? Everybody who gets upset about what this girl says, it's like, are you new to this? Have you not been paying attention the last decade this girl has been like this? She is one of the most, she is the, I guess you could say, the female equivalent of the Ultimate Warrior, where she is a phenomenon in terms of popularity and in terms of the, you know, the WWE machine really made her a big star. On her own, though, it's been incredibly meh. You know, there's going to be some people who are still worked up by the magic, but there's going to be a lot of other people who are going to start seeing through it. And so when people started blaming Britt Baker for this match, I looked at it and said, look, Mercedes ain't that over. There's not that many CEO chants out there. A lot of that stuff has been flat. And it's been flat since she came out. It's not, I mean, I'm talking about came out in terms of since she came to the company. So it's not like the crowd didn't care because Britt Baker wasn't working that hard. It's like the crowd didn't care because they don't really care. They don't care about this match. They don't really care about Britt Baker. They really don't care about Mercedes either. They haven't gotten into any Mercedes match, promo, segment, or anything since she came in. So it's mean-spirited to blame Britt Baker completely for the match not really getting over. Now, let's finally talk about the innards of the match, I guess you could say. The only important part that really happened was the body slam from the second rope, which Mercedes body slammed Britt early in the match from the second rope. They doubled back to that later, and they did instead a counter, which got the first fan reaction of the entire match. They also got a pretty good reaction where Britt Baker pulled a Eddie Guerrero to get Camille ejected. This was like literally a minute or two before the finish, so probably bad timing on that. But this match was incredibly mid, and quite frankly, nobody cared. I spent more time on it than it deserves, really. Match number 6. Will Ospreay defeats MJF to regain the International Championship. Will Ospreay got an Assassin's Creed themed entrance. MJF got an Apollo Creed themed entrance. So we got the super corny Super American MJF, who got to be the cheap heat heel in England, come out dressed in the American flag and the Uncle Sam and everything. I can say that for the AEW fans, they really loved this match, especially when Daniel Garcia showed up to stop MJF cheating. And we're supposed to believe also that he probably took MJF's Dynamite Diamond ring too, right? But for me, I literally just watched these guys wrestle for an hour not too long ago. So I really wasn't itching to watch another match. Not to say that the match was bad, just I could have not saw those guys wrestle for, I don't know, 6 months, whatever. But this match was okay. Will Ospreay hit the cameraman with a hidden blade. It was an accident. And he completely destroyed the guy. And then he starts acting like, he hit grandma who was trying to cross the street in his car. And he's like, oh my God, somebody help this guy. Somebody help. Like, bleeding heart Will Ospreay is hilarious. Like he's the most sensitive guy in the world. Oh my God, a minor mistake. What are we going to do? Somebody's going to die. Help. I'm like, oh, come on, man. He'll be all right. It's a grown man. It's medical team right there and everything. There was also a tombstone power driver on the floor, so that should tell you right then and there what kind of match we're going to have between MJF and Will. This was early in the match too, with this tombstone on the floor. It doesn't mean anything. So ultimately, Will Ospreay does win the match, and he wins the match with the Tiger Driver 91, which is exactly what everybody wanted, and crowd popped for it. And that was it. So Will Ospreay wins. At the end of the match, the American Championship is dumped to the floor, and Christopher Daniels presents him with the old International title, and it's now announced as the International Championship again. And they're going forward with Daniel Garcia versus MJF as the feud. And some people, gotta say, they're breathing a sigh of relief that Daniel Garcia did not decide to go to WWE. All the WWE fans are included in those people who are breathing a sigh of relief. So he's staying in AEW. He's going to feud with MJF. I don't think there was any question that he was going to stay anyway. Why leave? For what reason? There's really no reason for him to leave. So MJF, he got this thing with Daniel Garcia. Because Garcia did get involved, and it's kind of the reason why he lost. So there's that. People still believe that Will Ospreay is the best wrestler in the world. I'm not going to argue with them, but we went from Will Ospreay is the best wrestler in the world to Bryan Danielson is the best wrestler in the world in the same show in about an hour. So that's the AEW fans for you. They think both guys are the best wrestler in the world at the same time. Whoever is the last person to have a match is the best wrestler in the world, apparently. Because the best wrestler in the world, the GOAT, was also in the gauntlet match. So there's like so many GOATs running around. There's incredible amounts of GOATs and greatest wrestler of all times and all this kind of stuff. They like to speak in hyperbole. So let's get into this all-in gauntlet. There were supposed to be 21 competitors. Only 12 came in because the match can end at any time. So they kind of solved my problem with War Games. In so much as I really gripe because the War Games, you can't win until everybody comes in. So they solved that by saying, we're going to tell you how many people are in the match, but the match could end at any time. So, okay, they explained then why Orange Cassidy wanted to be number one. Because you're guaranteed to get into the match before the match ends. Okay, that makes sense. So they had 21 names. Only 12 came in. Those 12 being Orange Cassidy, Kyle O'Reilly, Zack Sabre Jr., Mark Briscoe, Kazuchika Okada, Roderick Strong, Hangman Page, Jeff Jarrett, Christian Cage, Luchasaurus, Nigel McGuinness, and Ricochet. Now, what did I say on Wednesday? Did I say that it's an absolute fail no matter who wins if that person who wins is not Ricochet? That's what I said, right? And did Ricochet win? No. So this is the one match on the show, probably this, MJF and Will Ospreay, and the main event that I saw the most glazing over. And I mean, it was an incredible amount of Royal Rumble slander. Fuck the Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble ain't got shit on this. Look at the quality of the talent in this match. I just was like, okay, I'm not going to say that bothered me at all. It's worth mentioning, but I didn't say it bothered me at all. What did kind of, prick me on the finger a little bit was the Royal Rumble this year, 2024. Triple H fully booked this Royal Rumble. There was almost no surprises, no returning stars, almost nothing of that sort. And people were still claiming, oh, it was one of the best Royal Rumbles of all time. You don't need to have surprises. You could just use the people who are on the roster already. What do you need surprises for? But then they do a surprise heavy match at All In, and all of a sudden it was so much better. Only 12 people out of the whole entire 21. They only did 12, so they didn't even fill the card completely. And they were like, this is the best. This is amazing. This is better than any Royal Rumble match I've ever seen. Because Zack Sabre Jr. showed up. So all of a sudden, it's the best ever. I heard he won the G1, by the way. Goes to show that if you have some stick-to-itiveness and everybody else who's worth a damn leaves, you will too be pushed to the top of the cart as, top white boy of New Japan. All you gotta do is wait for everybody else to leave. Then you and David Finlay are the only two guys worth a damn with white skin in all of New Japan. But Zack Sabre Jr., it's England, so of course they were going to be happy. Ricochet was kind of spoiled a couple of days, but I kind of figured when I did my review on Wednesday night that Ricochet would show up in this match. So when they dropped the bomb, I think it was Thursday afternoon that he had gotten signed, I already knew it was coming. So I wasn't a huge surprise for me there. The big surprise, of course, is Nigel McGuinness. The guy has not wrestled a match in 13 years. If I remember correctly, he was injured, but he also had, I think, hepatitis or something like that cost him his career in WWE. He was about to get signed, and then he got like hepatitis or something, and he couldn't pass a physical. And pretty much he just kind of became a commentator and was doing that for several years. So I know it meant something for him to show up in England at Wembley Stadium and be able to work. Like, that's truly emotional. That's good stuff. And the crowd being really excited to see him, because I don't think he's going to become a regular wrestler on the roster. But for this moment, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. Of course, by the time he came out, I don't know, maybe fourth, third or something. But by the time Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong came out, I was like, bro, this is like a reunion show for like Ring of Honor 2004. That's all AEW is. If you've been on the indies all this time, that you are the guy who gets an opportunity. There's so many people who are, who should be getting opportunities in AEW. And it's like, no, you weren't there when they ran Philly. You weren't on the undercard of CM Punk versus Samoa Joe, so you don't get to be a big star in Wembley Stadium in 2024. But at least I'm glad that Nigel McGuinness got there. Now, a couple of complaints. Clearly, everybody was groaning about the finish, which is Christian winning. Luchasaurus chokeslams Kyle O'Reilly, I believe it was, and then he put Christian on top, and Christian won the match. There was a lot of people literally like, I even saw some people say that this was a great match. It was the best match, better than any Royal Rumble match ever, until Christian won, and then they were like, never mind. I hate the result. Everything was great except the finish. And I was like, I didn't care for it. I didn't really care for this match. To me, the only surprise was Nigel McGuinness. I didn't think that he would win, so I wasn't concerned about that. I expected Ricochet to win because that's what somebody with decent booking ideas would do, is that you would bring somebody in hot and at least have them prepared to move them up the card. But instead, you brought in the guy, major fanfare, but actually, why even say major fanfare? He was brought in much like Lance Archer, much like a Leo Rush or a Matt Sydal. He was brought in the middle of the pack with no fanfare, no vignettes, no nothing. I mean, look, we all know who Ricochet is, so I'm not saying you need to introduce him like he's some guy from CMLL, but why not get people excited? I keep saying this, that AEW chooses to go for surprise rather than the debut. You could have taken a couple of weeks to do some vignettes to tell people Ricochet is going to be there and, build a story around it. So if you're not going to put him over in this match, you could at least, then why even put him in it? You could have, did a vignette featuring Ricochet with a, short talk about, him coming in, and you could have showed some highlights from New Japan and, say he'll be there in 2 weeks. He's going to make his debut at All Out or something like that, and then built the match around that. There's some things you could have done to raise the profile of Ricochet rather than just throw him in the match with a bunch of other people that he's not going to win. And, and then by the end of the show, nobody cared that he was on the show anyway. So it's not that much different from his run in WWE. Now, Christian winning, I wasn't thrilled with that. Look, I like Christian as much as everybody else, but Christian is 50. He's 50 years old. Why is he main eventing another show? Do you really want Christian versus Bryan Danielson for your world? Look, Christian versus Bryan Danielson for the world title in 2011. Big money. Could have made you a grip. In 2016, still solid. Could have made you. 2024 though, both of these guys are busted up and beaten down. And look, it's a great match on paper, but the idea that Christian is going to be your top contender for the title, and you have all these other exciting young guys that you could have put over, I don't know if it was a good decision. And Christian doesn't seem like the kind of guy where he needed to win a match like this anyway. He seemed like the kind of guy who could have talked himself into a title match. You could have just had Christian interrupt Bryan Danielson, and instead of talking about how his father is dead, you could talk about how he's a bad father. He lied to his daughter. He's not retiring. He's the world champion. He's going to defend the belt, and he might as well defend the belt against him because he's going to teach Bryan Danielson how to be a good father. He could have just talked himself into a title match. You don't have a lot of time to build one anyway because you got a pay-per-view in 2 weeks. So you could have just, if you were going to do Christian versus Danielson, you could have just had Christian talk himself into it, and you could have put over somebody else in this match. Maybe somebody that beat Danielson like Zack Sabre Jr. And everybody knows I hate Zack Sabre Jr. I hate him. He's garbage. But he won the G1, and they care about that in AEW. And he beat Bryan Danielson, if I remember correctly, not too long ago. So you could have had him win this match, and then Zack Sabre Jr. versus Bryan Danielson, so Danielson could get his win back, or lose the belt to him if that's what you want to do. I don't care. But you could have put somebody new over and made a star. Now, the Hangman story was important going into this because, of course, Hangman was like, I'm going to win this match and then take everything from Swerve, and none of that happened. None of it. He didn't win this match, and he wasn't the reason Swerve lost the title. So what really did he do except be very disgruntled and have a mustache? Not much of anything. He's still an effete cowboy, but whatever. So Christian won the Battle Royal. That's fine. Oh, yeah. And the Mr. Bean entrance for Orange Cassidy, it was cool. I like Mr. Bean. I love Mr. Bean. Back when I was a kid, I used to watch Canadian television. I used to watch Mr. Bean all the time because we used to get all the British comedies through Canadian broadcasting television here in Detroit. So I love Mr. Bean. Huge pop out of me doing the Mr. Bean tribute I love me some Mr. Bean. Match 4 was boring as all hell. FTR, the Young Bucks, and the Acclaimed. The Young Bucks won the match with the EVP trigger on FTR bald. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't really pay attention to this. I did not care about this match at all. The FTR and the Acclaimed, they got cheers. The Young Bucks got CM Punk chants. So that should tell you right there how the crowd was taking this. I did not care for this at all. After the match, the Grizzled Young Vets, a.k.a. FTR UK, jumped the barricade because you have FTR UK bald and FTR UK hair. And they yelled at the Young Bucks, essentially challenging them to a match. And then they jumped FTR US and beat them up. And the crowd was mildly interested in this. They were like, ooh. And then that was it. Even once everybody recognized them, there was no huge reaction for the Grizzled Young Vets. Nobody cares. You know? Like, they were supposed to be such a big deal when they left WWE, right? They left NXT. It's supposed to be like this really big deal. They had a tryout match on Collision like weeks ago. And then they disappeared. And then it seemed like they hadn't got a deal at all with AEW. And now it seems like they do have a deal with AEW. But nobody gives a damn. Because they're boring. They're just another set of boring wrestling guys. At the very least, you know, they're going to have good matches. They're another team that can have good matches. And so they're going to have good matches. Because at least they can do good matches. And that's all they really care about in AEW is good matches. The problem is once you see them have a couple of good matches, what more is there to them? Just more good matches. And there's a reason I call them FTR UK. There's a reason for it. And it ain't just because one of them is bald and one of them got hair. That ain't it. That ain't it. Hook defeats Chris Jericho to win the hardcore title. Jericho and Fozzy plays themselves to the ring. I don't get it. Jericho is wearing orange, which supposedly triggered Taz, especially on commentary. Hook had a side of his face taped up. I don't know if it was the right side or not. It doesn't really matter. But he took the tape off later to show, I can see you, Chris. I can see you, Chris. I'm sick of your shit. I'm sick of your shit. Anyway, this match sucked. It was just really bad. It was just genuine bad shit. Hook essentially wins a 3-on-1 match. He had no help outside of Taz himself finally getting involved in one of Hook's matches by putting the Katacha Hajime on Bryan Keith. But this was like near the end of the match. Hook did the same thing to Chris Jericho and Jericho tapped out. The less we say about this, the better. But there were cricket balls in the ring. There was a cricket bat in the ring. There was a barbed wire board, but I don't know if anybody actually used it. I did not care about this at all. They added the Taz flatline to Hook's entrance, and it was awkward because they did the dun, 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 and instead of going straight into Hook's theme, they still played the intro, like the doo 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 doo, instead of just going from the flatline to when the beat drops in his theme. I don't know why they do that. What was the point of that? Hook being the hardcore champion of AEW is an embarrassment. He's a young guy, you know. I know he has a lot of work to do in terms of promo, but it's time for him to move up with the rest of his peers. You know, like he should be one of the guys fighting Jack Perry for the TNT title. He should be in the mix for the international belts. He should be in a personal feud that doesn't involve his daddy's legacy. Like, the best thing Hook can do now, and if I was involved with it, I would have Hook burn that belt, throw it in the garbage or whatever, much like Shane Douglas. Like, that would be, if you were really creative and you knew your wrestling history, I would do that in the middle of the ring on Dynamite. I would have Taz in the ring, I would have Hook in the ring, and I would have Hook tell the story about, you know, the FTW title and what it meant to Taz and what it meant to the family, you know, and the legacy of Taz, then I would have him spit on it and throw it on the ground, much like Shane Douglas did to the NWA World Title, and say, enough about Taz. It's not about you anymore. It's about me. You know, it's time for me to make my own legacy and go from there. Him going forward as a fuck Taz, not heel, but enough about who my dad is. It's all about me now. And Taz could take it as disrespect if he wants to, but he should ultimately come around and say that, you know, he's proud that Hook is going to do his own thing, and the FTW title doesn't mean that much to him. His son means more, that kind of thing. But he has to get away from this fucking belt. You know, one way or the other, he's got to get away from this belt. He could set it, he could piss on it, shit on it, set it on fire, or put it on a mantle over his bed. I don't care what he does with it. This belt has to go away. It's becoming an anchor around him. It is the reason why he has not progressed in terms of stature on the card, promos, or anything. It's because of this damn belt and being stuck in Taz's shadow. Enough. Enough. It's been 3 years. Enough. No more. This is why I'm so glad WWE didn't immediately saddle Brian Breaker with the Steiner name. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do that. All right? You can let the kid make his own legacy. It's time for it. We know he's Taz's son now. Now it's time to figure out who he really is. Who is Hook for real? You know? And he goes off and stops with the anime haircuts and come back with something else. As somebody else. Something that's closer to who he is. Because he's not street. So the idea that he's some kind of boots and jeans Brooklyn guy, forget it. Nobody's going to believe that. But he might know a little something about defending himself. You know, Taz did martial arts. I'm pretty sure his son did too. There's a lot of ways you can go with that. But what he's been doing right now has been incredibly limiting to him. Now, Jericho's in an interesting situation considering Jericho has been resisting retirement. People have been yelling for Jericho to retire. He doesn't care. He keeps coming out saying, I don't want to have a retirement match. I don't want to have a retirement tour. I don't want people to even know I'm going to retire. I just want to walk off into the sunset. And it's like fewer and fewer people are really behind Chris Jericho. And some of that's on the internet. You know, a lot of that is internet hate for Chris Jericho. So it's not real. But when you watch the show, yeah, you get a sense that Jericho is doing the same thing over and over and over. He's starting a faction. He wins the title. The faction helps him keep the title. Eventually he loses the title. And then the faction falls apart. So now we're at the part of the story where Jericho has created a faction. He created a new gimmick to go with the faction. He has new players in the faction. Now he's lost the title. Now he's going to lose the faction. And it's been the same thing for 5 years. Regardless of how many new catchphrases he comes up with, how he's a wizard and the demo god, it's always been the same damn thing. Chris Jericho starts a faction. Chris Jericho wins a title. Chris Jericho, the faction helps Jericho keep the title. Jericho at least eventually loses the title, then he loses the faction. And it's been a cycle. He needs to go away for a while. You know, he needs to go away for like 6 months. And I believe he said that if he leaves, it's not going to be a big spot missing. And since he knows that, then maybe he ought to take a vacation. Get in better shape. Make people miss you. You know? And then maybe people won't feel so bad if Danielson is still around and Jericho has one more match with him or something. You know? Or he gets into a feud with Jeff Jarrett. Because I think a Jarrett and Jericho feud could be fun. You know, between the two older statesmen of the company. I like that idea. But Jericho's got to go away. You know, it's a little too much Chris Jericho on the show. And I don't really see how he's helping these guys. He's certainly not helping Big Bill and Brian Keith. You know, they're just there, but they're henchmen. Brian Keith especially is not really being helped by being in Chris Jericho's corner. But then again, there ain't much you could do with Brian Keith anyway. All right. Match number 2. Mariah May wins the women's world title, defeating Timeless Toni Storm. Now, this match was one of the better matches on the show, a match that I thoroughly enjoyed, despite the fact that it was a little weird, as Mariah May got more and more cartoonishly evil as the match went on. We started the match with a standoff between the two. You would think it would be the classic Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan. They're itching to get at each other. Except for it's an opportunity for Toni Storm to be teary-eyed and to be upset at what Mariah May has done to her and what done to their relationship. And Mariah May is stone-faced. And then they go into the fried Takayama punch segment, which never looks good. Out of all wrestlers, keep doing the Don Fry Takayama punch to the head spot, and it never looks good because most of these people don't know how to throw punches, so it never looks good. But at least this feud, it was warranted. Mariah May spit on Luther. She actually slapped her own mother too. I'm like, this is cartoonishly evil. Like, she invited her mom to the show just to slap her mom in the face. That's weird. Toni Storm power drives Mariah May on the stairs, which led to Mariah May bleeding. We get another middle finger spot, which was probably the one of like this was the first of like 6 middle finger spots on the show, because I'm pretty sure Okada did a middle finger spot too, and I think somebody else did as well. So there was quite a few of them on the show because that's a AEW thing. But I think it was a ref bump or the ref distraction where they were kissing each other in the crotch and double headbutt each other. And I was like, oof, why are they kicking each other in the crotch? Anyway, Mariah May goes for the shoe. She went for the title first, but Luther grabbed it and gave her a middle finger. So yeah, that was the other person I was thinking of. So she couldn't use the belt, so instead she goes for the shoe, the bloody shoe. Toni Storm steps on her wrist, takes the shoe from her, and then it looks like she's going to hit Mariah May with the bloody shoe. But she loves Mariah May and she can't do it. Mariah May then counters into a shotgun pin. 1, 2, Toni kicks out. And then Mariah May hits her with a couple of, I think, running knee strikes or whatever, and wins the match with Storm Zero, which is Toni Storm's finish. Now, the finish was smart because Mariah May's gimmick was that she was trying to be Toni Storm, that she was mimicking Toni Storm for most of her run. So her using Toni's finish is sensible, right? The part that I didn't really care for was the melodrama with the shoe. I like that, Toni wouldn't use the shoe. Matter of fact, I'm on the fence about it because initially Toni was, rabid and crazy about this whole thing. She wanted to kill Mariah May. And then over time, she just went to feeling sorry and feeling guilty about it and being teary-eyed and upset. So I'm not really sure whether it fits her character or not to not stab Mariah May with the shoe. But the shotgun pin with when she grabbed her legs and flipped over, that would have been a great finish because that's when the crowd was up. The crowd was really up for that because it would have been a surprise finish as, Toni is conflicted and Mariah May takes advantage of it. That would have been a great finish. And it also would have set up rematches. But with her winning flat with Storm Zero, I guess it was okay because, again, she was mimicking Toni Storm throughout the entirety of the storyline. So this is fine. Mariah May winning is the right decision. Toni Storm is not hurt by this at all. They tell the story of Toni laying in the ring. The crowd was insanely behind Toni Storm. They seemingly was trying to bait a standing ovation out of the audience, but instead they just started chanting Toni Storm's name and, the Toni Storm, and they didn't give her a standing ovation, which is what they was trying to get. That's why they left the camera laying on Toni Storm laying in the ring, because they wanted to get the crowd to do a standing ovation, and instead they just went into the Toni Storm song. And then she got up, and it seemed like she was laughing maniacally. And then it seemed like she started dancing. And I'm like, where are we going with this? Like, is she heartbroken? Is she delirious? Does she have like heat stroke? Like, what's going on? But I guess that fits where we're going with. Last time Toni Storm lost the title, she went nuts. And maybe that's what we're doing here again, is that she lost the title again, and she's going to go crazy, which I don't know. But Toni Storm has been immaculate as the women's world champion. This storyline with Mariah May has been fantastic. This was a very good match. The crowd was very much into it. This match had a lot more heat, a lot more intrigue than the Mercedes and Britt Baker match. It probably had a lot more heat and intrigue than a lot of the other matches on this show. And they put it on second. They put it on second. Okay. I'm pretty sure that, I'm pretty sure there was a reason for that. Oh yeah, let's talk about this while we're on the subject of the women. Mercedes Mone took a shot at, I think, one of the WWE shows by saying like they have more women's matches on All In than they've ever had at WrestleMania or something like that, or a one night WrestleMania. I guess she made those comments before she realized that one of the women's matches that she was talking about, which was the mixed tag match, got booted to the pre-show. I didn't see that match either because I didn't watch the pre-show. I knew the show was going to be long, so I didn't watch the pre-show. So that really got people upset too, because they were like, what do you mean? WWE put so much effort. It's like, stop getting upset about things that this girl says. She's delusional, and she's trying to hype AEW. So what's the problem? Relax. Just chill. The first match on the show, the Trios Championship ladder match, 12 men, House of Black, Patriarchy, Bang Bang Gang, Pac, and the Blackpool Combat Club. The crowd did not care about this. They were substantially less expressive in this match than they had been at any point. In fact, throughout the entirety of this show, everything was less over than it was last year. Last year, pretty much everything was hot. The crowd was super excited for everything. This year, they picked and chose what they were going to be excited about. And this wasn't one of them because it was all slapdash, a bunch of people thrown together, and they really didn't give a damn. So the winners of the match were actually Pac and the Blackpool Combat Club, which makes zero sense considering what are they even doing here? What are they even doing here? But I guess they wanted to have Pac win in his hometown, and they wanted to take the belts off Christian so Christian can go do something else. But House of Black is literally right there. What is the point of these guys being here? They don't show up on TV hardly. Well, I guess if they do, they're on Collision when I don't see them. And these trio belts, they're dead in the water, man. These belts are dead as fucking doorknob. Now, the oddball thing about this is that it actually ties into the gauntlet later. Because after they lose, Christian is yelling at Luchasaurus, and Luchasaurus leaves the ring and waves Christian off like, oh, forget you. And he storms off. But they don't follow it up at all. So you have to really just have been paying attention that Luchasaurus was frustrated with Christian. And then, of course, he helps Christian win later, which, made some people grumble. But it's because they didn't follow it up. If they'd have did like a backstage promo to explain it or to show them arguing or something like that, it would have been so much better. But considering on pay-per-view they do nothing but matches, like all they do is matches, so they're not taking the time to flesh their own stories out, even within the body of the pay-per-view, that was problematic. You gotta break your routine at some point to do something special. But whatever. But Pac and the Blackpool Combat Club, okay, Pac got his Wembley moment, which is all he cared about. So here it is. And Wheeler Yuta has the belt, which is an embarrassment. That sucks. Speaking of things that suck, apparently I was told that Dustin Rhodes has 2 sets of belts, that he's got the Ring of Honor Tag Team title and the Ring of Honor Trios title. I didn't see him win any of these things, but I saw on Twitter that he was a tag team champion with Sammy Guevara, and I was like, Sammy Guevara? What? And apparently they wrestled on this show in the pre-show, but I didn't watch it, so I can't tell you what happened. Also, I do know that Jamie Hayter made her big return on the All In pre-show. And this frustrated a lot of people because they thought, okay, naturally, she would have been in Britt Baker's corner against Camille when those two wrestled later. But it turns out that Sean Ross Sapp actually scooped everybody by saying that the relationship between Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter ain't exactly as strong as it used to be. And that, they're not going to be working together at any point in time in the future. So Jamie Hayter, who was world champion the last time she was seen, she has the same issue as Thunder Rosa, where she disappears for months and months and months. And then when she does return, nobody cares because she's put into a throwaway spot on the card. I am not as big a booster for Jamie Hayter as other people are. I'm not as in the bag for Jamie Hayter as other people. I look at things logically to a degree, and I say continuity. Jamie Hayter was the women's world champion the last time you saw her. She should be in that spot. So if that meant that she had to wait until Dynamite to make her return, that would have been fine. If he would have done an angle where Mariah May is backstage popping champagne with Mina Shirikawa or whatever, and then Jamie Hayter busts in the locker room just to give her a warning that now I'm medically cleared or something, that would have been fine. But imagine somebody gets injured and they're the world champion, and then you re-debut them far away from the title on the pre-show, where they are feuding with and get in the face of people who are super far away from the title. That's such a continuity issue. Now, I know that they're going to loop around and they're going to get her back in rotation eventually, but you have an opportunity to create some immediate intrigue, to plant a seed for a story, even if you're not going to do the match immediately. You're going to do the match at some point. So why not? Or if you want to say, well, we're going to blame the injury on Toni Storm, or we're going to blame the injury on somebody, I guess that's what they're doing. Maybe it was Saraya that injured Jamie Hayter, and that's why they're going in that direction. But it doesn't really matter. At this point, I just think that they're dropping the ball. And then again, I just say things that make sense to me. Not that I'm a super fan of Jamie Hayter or anything like that. Just, it makes sense to me that if you thought she was important enough to be the world champion, that you would keep her in the rotation around the title when she came back from injury. Why would she be so far away from the belt? It just doesn't seem to make sense to me. Doesn't make sense to me that you would debut Ricochet, who is, the whole idea is Ricochet has been held down when, in WWE. He's been held back. It's time for something new. It's time for something different. And instead of, telling that story and showing that story, what you do is you throw him in a match with a bunch of other guys. He does flips like a bunch of other guys, and then he doesn't win. You don't have to be like a super fan of Ricochet to look at that and say, well, that's a wasted opportunity. The whole thing is Ricochet is supposed to be a bigger deal to the AEW audience than he is to the WWE audience. This is the point where you're supposed to show people about what this guy can do. Remind people who Ricochet is. That was the whole gimmick that Will Ospreay was putting out there. Ricochet is so good, bro. He's so much better than anybody can see, bro. He's so good. He's time to show the fuck out, bro. And what they do is they put him in there in a garbage match that don't matter, and then he don't win. No, that doesn't make sense. And after he has the match with Will Ospreay, and he eventually has the match with Swerve Strickland, which I know, the Lucha Underground sect of the audience are going to be very excited. Then what? That's why I'm saying you have to slow down. Either do it fast and you put him over immediately, or you slow it down and you introduce him over time. And you do important matches with him here, there, and everywhere until you're ready to have a lane open up for him to feud with the top guys. But that's not what he has to show off all of his toys immediately. And he's going to get bored with them in 3 months. Ricochet is going to be on Collision with Deonna Purrazzo, and hopefully that doesn't happen. Ricochet is one of the guys who has been incredibly durable. He has not been suffering plenty of injuries. Like, the worst thing about him is he's small, doesn't have that much charisma, and he's kind of flippy. So he's like the rest of the AEW roster. But you could at least have held on to the mythology that Ricochet is going to be something really special. He's going to be unleashed. But they didn't even do that. So they kind of burnt the money on that. But whatever. As far as the show is concerned, I give it a 6.5 out of 10. Now, you may say that's kind of low, but you have to consider, I don't really care about the ladder match. I didn't care about the tag team title match. I didn't care about Jericho and his match. I didn't really care about Britt Baker and Mercedes. So there was like 9 matches on the card. I don't care about 5 of them, 6 of them, or whatever. Toni Storm, Mariah May had my interest. The main event, tremendous amount of interest. And I was interested in the Battle Royal to see who would win, because it had stakes to it. And I was kind of interested in MJF and Will Ospreay. Even though I had already seen these guys work, I thought they would do something different. But, it was, the 88th minute of their match from previous. It wasn't that different. So that's why I rated the show 6.5. Because with the exception of Jack Perry, Molly Wop, and Darby Allin, everybody went 50-50 with everybody. And which is to be expected on the pay-per-view, but it's boring. It's boring. There's no variety in what's happening. Yeah, this match is a triple threat match, or this one's a ladder match, or this one's a singles match, but it's all just 50-50 shit. So. But let me know what you guys think. Tell me I'm wrong. Lie to yourselves and tell me I'm wrong. And I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.
No one does it better.